As I look at the world over the decades, what I see is incredible progress, but also unfulfilled dreams. The average person today is much better than the one 30 years ago, but the averages conceal deep undercurrents of marginalization, discontent, and hardship. My former professor of statistics used to say about averages, you can put your head in the fridge, your feet in the oven, your average temperature, would be average, but you will be dead. And what we see is many people in many places, especially the young, are taking their disappointment to the streets, from Lima to Rabat, from Paris to Nairobi, from Kathmandu to Jakarta. All are demanding better opportunity. Here in the US, chances of growing up to earn more than your parents keep falling. And here, too, discontent has been evident, and it has helped precipitate the policy revolution that is now unfolding, reshaping trade, immigration, and many international frameworks. All of this plays out against a backdrop of deep transformation in geopolitics, in technology, in demographics, with populations surging in some places and shrinking in others, and in the mounting harm we do to our planet. What is the result? Exceptionally high uncertainty. Globally, it has shot up and continues to climb. Buckle up. Uncertainty is the new normal. It is here to stay. As we know, next week the world's finance ministers and central bank governors would gather at our annual meeting. Wonderful to see one of our former governors, Treasury Secretary Milken here. Thank you for joining us today. As you know, this would be a time of very intense engagements, and the most pressing questions will be about the global economic impact of these forces of transformation and the policy turbulence we are experiencing today. So, how is the world economy coping? Short answer: better than feared, but worse than we need. When we met in April, many experts, not us, predicted a US recession in the near term, with negative spillovers to the rest of the world. Instead, the US economy, as well as many other advanced and emerging markets and some developing countries, have held up. As our World Economic Outlook will explain next week, we see global growth slowing only slightly this year and next. All signs point to a world economy that has generally withstood acute strains from multiple shocks. So, how do we explain this resilience? What made it possible? I would point to 4 reasons. 1, improved policy fundamentals. 2, private sector adaptability. 3, less severe tariff outcomes than initially feared, for now. And 4, supportive financial conditions for as long as they hold. Let me elaborate. First reason: better policy fundamentals and global coordination. In many parts of the world, sustained efforts have delivered more credible monetary policy, deeper local currency bond markets, new fiscal rules, and during the pandemic, and actually Secretary Mnuchin was part of it, swift, decisive, and globally coordinated fiscal action to limit the immediate pain and the lasting scars. Emerging market economies, in particular, have significantly upgraded their policy frameworks and institutions. We just put out a report on progress they have made, quantifying the gains. These economies now perform better when shocks strike than before the global financial crisis. Good policy makes a difference. Second reason for resilience, private sector adaptability. And again, we have seen the public sector moving out from where it doesn't belong, from the economy, the private sector stepping forward, and that is benefiting the world at a time of more turbulence. Just look at private initiative in world trade. Companies have been front-loading import orders in advance of tariff hikes and reorganizing rapidly their supply chains. Corporate balance sheets are generally strong after years of robust profit. Reflexes are quick after the dry runs of shock after shock. Artificial intelligence is becoming mainstream. Anybody in this audience using ChatGPT? Raise a hand. Okay, mainstream. And change is faced as a challenge, but also embraced as an opportunity. Third reason, tariffs, where the shock has not been as large as initially announced. The US trade-weighted tariff rate has fallen from 23% in April to 17.5% now. This is still much higher than it was before. The US effective rate, we calculate that it is around 9 to 10%. In other words, what is collected as tariffs is far above the rest of the world. But the world has been relatively steady this year with very few cases of retaliation. In short, the world has avoided a tit-for-tat slide into a trade war for now. But openness has nonetheless taken a big hit, and the story is not over. US tariff rates keep moving. Trade deals with the UK, the EU, Japan, soon Korea, they have nudged some rates down, while disputes with Brazil and India have pushed others up. And other countries' rates also are likely to move somewhat more. But bottom line here is better than we feared. For reason, supportive financial conditions. Fired up by optimism about the productivity-enhancing potential of AI, global equity prices are surging. This plus tight risk spreads leaves funding markets generally wide open. And in addition, the dollar's slide earlier this year gives precious relief to non-US borrowers with dollar-denominated debt. So here we have it, 4 factors behind the economic resilience we have seen this year. But before anyone heaves a big sign of relief, please hear this. Global resilience has not yet been fully tested. And there are some worrying signs the test may come. Just look at the surging global demand for gold. Spurred by valuation effects and net purchases, partly reflecting geopolitical factors, holdings of monetary gold now exceed 1/5 of the world's official reserves. On tariffs, the full effect is still to unfold. In the US, margin compression could give way to more price pass-through, raising inflation, with implications for monetary policy and for growth. Elsewhere, a flood of goods previously destined for the US market could trigger a second round of tariff hikes. Yes, world trade is rippling, but still flowing. Like water, it is not easy to pluck and stop. For now, most of the world's trade still follows the rules. We at the IMF are urging the world's policymakers, please keep it this way. Please preserve trade as an engine of growth. As for easy financial conditions, which are masking but not arresting some softening trends, including in job creation, history tells us this sentiment can turn on the dime. Today's valuations are heading towards levels we saw during the bullishness about the internet 25 years ago. If a sharp correction were to occur, tighter financial conditions could drag down world growth, expose vulnerabilities, and make life especially tough for developing countries. So, in a multipolar world of rapid change, it is paramount that policymakers do much more to capture and deliver opportunity so they can meet the aspirations of their citizens, especially young people. So, how could they do that? At the IMF, we propose 3 medium-term policy goals. First, to durably lift growth, so the economy creates more jobs, more public revenue, better public and private debt sustainability. Second, to repair government finances, so they can buffer new shocks and attend to the pressing needs without driving private sector borrowing rates up. And 3, to address excessive imbalances, both domestic and external, so they do not emerge as a spoiler. Let me take you through those 3 one by one. First, growth. Many of you have heard me talking about it. Global growth forecast at around 3% over the medium term, way below the pre-pandemic 3.7% level. Global growth patterns have been changing over the years, notably with China decelerating steadily, while India is turning into a key growth engine. Durably lifting growth requires, above all, higher private sector productivity. And for this, governments must provide and protect the basic building blocks of free markets, including property rights, rule of law, good data, effective bankruptcy codes, strong financial sector oversight, and independent yet accountable institutions. In too many economies, private sector productivity is tangled up in red tape, and startups can neither start nor grow. Competition, of course, is key, And regulation must not tolerate or create unfair advantage. So, today, I call on our member countries to embrace a regulatory house cleaning to release entrepreneurship energy, supported by strong institutions and governance. This is not the time for self-inflicted injuries. This is a time to get the house in order. To Asia, I say, deepen internal trade to include more final goods and more services, and press forward with reforms to strengthen the service sector and access to finance. Our analysis suggests that a push for more regional integration, notably by lowering non-tariff barriers, could raise GDP by 1.8% in the long run. To sub-Saharan Africa, I see the Kenyan ambassador here. Gains from reforms in this region can be especially large, given the young and growing labor force. Comprehensive, business-friendly reforms, combined with progress in advancing the continental free trade area, they could lift the real GDP per capita in a median African country by 10%. And to my beloved native Europe, some tough love. Enough lofty rhetoric of how to lift competitiveness. You know what must be done. So do it. Consider appointing a single market czar with real authority to drive reforms forward. Remove border frictions in the labor market, goods and services, trade in energy and finance. Build a single European financial system. For God's sake, get the capital markets union to work for you. Build an energy union. Complete your project and catch up with the private sector dynamism of the United States. A picture can say 1,000 words. Here, what you see is how 7 US mega firms, none of which existed 51 years ago, boast market capitalization in the United States. United States? In the United States, right there. So look at the picture here and on picture there. They dwarf the firms of similar vintage in Europe. This has to change. Let me now turn to fiscal affairs, starting with the sobering reality that global public debt is projected to exceed 100% of GDP by 2029. And this is led by advanced and emerging market economies. Rising debt inflates interest payments, exerts upward pressure on borrowing costs, constrains other spending, and reduces government's ability to cushion against shocks. And one of the most dramatic casualties in advanced economies is that development assistance to the world's neediest countries has been regrettably on a decline. And what it means for low-income countries on the receiving end of this trend is more self-help, including setting a minimum tax to GDP target of 15%. I mean, frankly, you cannot have a functioning economy if your tax to GDP is 9%, 10%, 11%. We also have to advocate for fiscal consolidation as a necessity in countries rich and poor alike. And yeah, consolidation is difficult, as many of the recent episodes of social unrest show. But if it is planned, communicated, and implemented well, significant deficit reduction can be delivered, especially if it is helped by higher medium-term growth. And that's our hope, grow your economy out of trouble. With that, let me now turn to the third task, reducing resurgent current account imbalances. As we have seen, these imbalances can trigger a protectionist backlash, and being mirrored by net capital flows, they can fuel financial stability risks. At the IMF, we are working hard to refine our external sector assessments, and we will keep pushing key players for policy corrections. To the US, where both private consumption and the fiscal deficit are high, and the current account deficit is at levels not seen since the early 2000s, we will urge action along two broad dimensions. First, step to address the federal government deficit, noting that the federal debt to GDP ratio is on a path to exceed its all-time high after World War II. We need sustained action that goes beyond discretionary spending. Second, steps to incentivize household savings, where consideration should be given, for instance, to expanding existing plans that provide favorable tax treatment for retirement savings, among other possible tax policy adjustments. To China, where private savings are chronically high and domestic demand is held back by protracted real estate adjustment and deflationary pressures, we urge transitional fiscal expansion and permanent fiscal recomposition. China needs a fiscal structural package to boost private consumption, transition to a new growth model, and reflate its economy, which will also help counter the recent depreciation of its real exchange rate, which pulls against rebalancing. This gives me time to breathe. Here is the exchange rate. Among other items, China's package should include more spending on social safety nets and property sector cleanup, and much less on industrial policy, where a new IMF paper estimates the cost at high level 4.4% of GDP per year. As for Germany, its recent structural shift to a more expansive fiscal policy, which should help bring down the current account surplus, shows that yes, corrections can be made. Bravo to Germany. Public spending on infrastructure, pushed up by providing incentives for private investment at home, will be especially beneficial as Germany seeks to inject new dynamism into its private sector. And yes, the country needs it and can benefit from it. So as I close, let me go back to youth aspirations. Mike, it is with a sense of deep responsibility that I lead an institution where our basic duty is to influence policies in a way that maximizes economic opportunity for all people. So today, my parting words are these. If we all pull together in this complex and uncertain world, we can deliver good policies that underpin free markets with smart regulations, strong institutions, reliable data, and robust safety nets. Policies with the power to further increase resilience and accelerate growth. I will finish with words I read on the wall in this room. A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality. So let's get it done and deliver opportunity in this time of change. Thank you. Thank you.